Welcome to A1R Psychic Radio here on Moonstruck TV with Amanda Hall, psychic all the way from the Gold Coast. We do apologise with the broadcast being late today. The Techo gremlins have been in everybody's systems and playing great fun. So to kick the show off, we're going to start off with the Simply Tarot card of the week. But before I do, I'll just give you a little bit of a rundown of who I am and where I'm from. I'm Amanda Hall, psychic. I'm all the way from the Gold Coast here in Australia. Been in this psychic industry here for over 40 years. I've won a number of industry awards. Over the years, I'm known as one of the master tarot teachers in this country. I've trained a lot of the world's greatest psychics, and I enjoy bringing and sharing with you each week a little bit of my knowledge that I've amassed over my extensive career, which has now panned over 40 years. So today we're going to be working with the Simply Tarot card of the week, which is a deck I created with an Australian publisher here we launched it in 2005. And we've sold over 120,000 copies of our original set worldwide. We've since gone on to bring out 2 other projects since then. So as you can see, it's only gaining in popularity. So we're working with the original deck, which is the Simply Tarot card, which is the 5 of Pentacles. Now, it's a really, really apt card this week because I think a lot of people will relate to this. The delays around money. Whether you've had to spend a lot of money, which I've had to do in the last couple of days with an IT breach, internet hacking thing, or whether you've just spent a lot of money because you've been going shopping and having fun, it's a delay around money coming in. It's not saying it won't come in. It's just saying that, you know, money's trickling in instead of pouring in. It's also the feeling of coming in from out of the cold. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean the weather. This can mean any area of your life where you felt that you've been isolated, you've been restricted, you've been locked out from, that you haven't had any contact with people, or just finally feeling that you're finding your own feet. So that's the card of the week this week. So hopefully money will start trickling in for you a little bit better than it has done in recent weeks. It's a very, very interesting week astrologically, and I want to jump in there first before we talk about the candle of the week. We've been talking about Uranus moving into Taurus over the last couple of weeks, and I've mentioned to you before on the show, we looked at it on a very personal level a couple of shows back. This week I want to focus on how it's going to affect the world, and it's really interesting because I only decided to do this probably late Monday afternoon, and I thought, well, you know, I'll tie it in somehow with the political stuff that's going on around the world. My first thought was Trump and Kim Jong-un in North Korea, where they're doing their little dance backwards and forwards at whether or not they're going to have the summit. But this morning, because it is daytime here in Australia, I noticed on the news from CNN the really interesting thing of how they've just axed Roseanne Barr from the show, from her tweet, and being, you know, rather rude in this day's society about somebody that had a different colour skin to her. And this is exactly a very classic example of how Uranus in Taurus is going to work, where people have got away with things before, nobody's really noticed, and it's sort of like they're going to be sitting there back on their backsides going, wow, why did this happen to me? I haven't done anything different to what I've been doing all my life. Why am I being penalised? And going to be quite shocked. But what Uranus is doing, it's like a bolt of lightning. It acts very, very quickly. It's like a sword dropping to the ground. It's one clean cut. It doesn't dilly-dally, and because it's in Taurus, which is where our value systems are, the things that we believe in, the things that are important to us, whether it's a personal person or whether it's a corporation, it's now people are going to really stand up for what they believe in. And we're going to start to see people's value systems really come to the forefront. So this is a very classic example of how quickly Uranus in Taurus can work. And it can work instantaneously. Like, you know, she no sooner made the tweet, and within hours, the show had been axed, her manager had axed her, and the list goes on. So let that be a warning to people, not just the everyday people like you and I, but to everybody. Watch what you're saying on your social media. It does have consequences. It's not about, you know, yes, we're entitled to an opinion, but I don't think we have the right to belittle or defame somebody else. So please be very careful before you open your mouth and let the verbal diarrhea come out, because it is there to stay, and it will be there to follow you and haunt you for the rest of your career or the rest of your life. So be very, very careful what you do on social media. So changing the subject just slightly away from that, I want to quickly touch on the other major area of astrological influence this week, which is where I was really going to focus until the Roseanne thing broke. and we've spent a bit too much time talking about her, but let's focus on us now. Let's focus on Venus in Cancer. So for anybody that may be in a relationship that's looking to spice things up or to move things along, now is the time to sort of really start focusing on some very homely, very nice looking things, or some nice opportunities, you know, some candlelit dinners, some picnics in the park, something very, very romantic with your partner. If you haven't got a relationship happening and you're looking for one, make sure that you go to places that are quite intimate. Don't go to the open air rock concert hoping to meet the love of your life. You're not likely to meet them there, but you are more likely to meet somebody in a more intimate setting. You know, somewhere that's a nice, comfortable, homely sort of restaurant, somewhere that, you know, it's an intimate show, things like that. That would be where my point of focus would be. The other way that Venus in Cancer works is a lot of us are now focusing on our homes. We're moving the furniture around, we're hanging soft furnishings, we're making it a much more comfortable space to be in, and a lot of people are rediscovering the art of cooking and baking and wanting to get back in and make their home a real home. And where does the heart of the home start from? I believe from the kitchen. You know, if people are well fed and happy and we've got conversation and communication happening around the kitchen table, I believe that's the heart of the home and that's where the love is. So the candle of the week, or we have two candles this week because we have the full moon in Sagittarius. Now the full moon, as we've established before, if you've been watching over the last 12 months, is the time that where we let go of things. It's where we release things from our lives that are no longer necessary anymore. And this week, the full moon starts on the 30th of May, 30th of May, and it goes in, depending on your local time zone, somewhere before midnight, 1 o'clock in the morning, or roughly here in Australia anyway. I'm not sure about other parts of the world, so you'd have to check your local guides for that. But it is a very, very powerful full moon this time. Some people are going to say to me, I'm feeling very restless. Other people are going to say, I've got really, really high energy and I don't know what to do with it. The most important thing to do is make sure that you use up the energy in a very positive way. If you can't sleep, get up and do something. Get up and do something that's going to make you tired and make you go back to bed and fall asleep. It is a time where we have great enthusiasm, great energy. You might even sort of think you're a little bit superhuman, so be a little bit careful of that. Don't overextend yourself. If you've taken up something new, like a new exercise program or something, don't push past what is your recommended boundaries, because this is the time that you think that you're like Superman, you can do anything, and you really can't, even though it's nice to have that thought. But it is an amazing time of a lot of things coming into our minds in a higher mind way. For those people that are religious and have religious beliefs that they've been studying or working towards, they will be heightened at this time. For other people that believe in their own religion, they're living by their own rules, they may also find that they'll have lots of things popping in and out of their mind, asking them to look at things in a different way. And it's also asking you to sort of be very true to yourself. It is a time, though, where we must be careful that some people could get into trouble with the wrong side of the law. So please don't speed, drink or take drugs and drive a car, do anything foolish, because you probably will be caught much easier this time than at any other time in the year. So it's just a little warning in that way. So our candles of the week this week obviously are going to be the fire sign candle, because we're working with the fire energy of the Sagittarian. Now, for those of you that watch the show regularly, you'll hear me say these candles will burn up to 100 hours. These are our extra large ones. I'll just tilt it forward where you can see they've got 2 wicks in them. I like to only light 1 wick one day and light the other wick the other day, purely because the glass container does get very hot, and sometimes with the variation and changes in temperature, the glass containers can actually crack. And I found if you light the wick on alternate sides each day, you'll find that you have less chance of it cracking. Plus, you also get an extra 30 hours out of your candle. So, you know, recommended by the candle manufacturing place that we buy our supplies from, recommend 60 hours for these. I can get up to 100 hours out of my candle by burning alternate wicks. Always make sure that you put your candle on, not directly on a surface. Always place it on a coaster and then put it onto your table. So that's our fire sign candle. The other one, of course, we'll be working with is the full moon, because it is the full moon. So how do we work with these candles? What I like to do is write a list of what I want to release under the full moon. You'll need to write it out twice, because you're going to place it under both candles. You'll need to burn your candle for approximately 15 minutes to 2 hours per day. I would normally say 2 days on the lead up of the full moon, 2.5 days of the full moon, so let's stretch it out to 3 days from the 30th. And also let's look at a 2-day wind down. So you're looking at approximately a 7-day period of burning these candles. We've got 5 days if we're counting the full moon starting today. So for those of you that might want to travel, we have our little travel pack. This week I've made it up of 2 fire signs and a full moon in the middle. You can obviously choose what you'd like to put in your travel pack. They don't all have to be full moons or your star sign. They could be love, they could be destiny, they could be clearing, they could be anything else. But the other thing I want to share with you is you can always pop part of your wax out of your candle into your melt warmer. You can buy these electric melt warmers at the supermarket, around about $20 here in Australia, under $20 here in Australia, probably a lot cheaper in the US. And they are electric, they plug into the wall, they have a little button on the side, and they're safe to burn or have them melting the wax for all day. So it's a much safer alternative to a candle. You can use the wax out of your candle. You only need to put about half a teaspoon in there at a time. If you're doing the full moon with the fire sign, if you have both of those candles, you would put about 1/4 teaspoon of each in there. Again, write everything out, place it underneath the melt warmer underneath it. You put your list, put that underneath, and then put your wax warmer on top, and then you can walk away and leave it. So that just gives you a little bit of an idea of how we work with those. So we have been working with some famous singers over the last few shows, and I'm really excited today to say our female singer for the week that I've chosen, who is a Taurus, is no other than Cher. Now, isn't she an amazing goddess? She's nicknamed the Goddess of Pop, and I really think that's a very apt description for Cher, because she's not only a stunningly gorgeous, beautiful woman, but she emerged from a very awkward sort of teenager as, you know, starting out her musical career with a man called Cher, and they went on to be married and became the Sonny and Cher tag team, the duo. And, you know, she was sort of always second fiddle to Sonny. He thought he was superior to her, but she was actually the magic, I believe, between the duo. And when they divorced and they parted company, and Cher went on to have her own solo career, she sold in excess of 100 million records worldwide. Now, that's a pretty phenomenal amount of records to sell by a solo artist. She's also had a top #1 hit in each decade for 6 years on the Billboard charts around the US. Now, that's no mean feat. If you imagine a #1 hit in at least each decade for 6 years, that's 6 decades is 60 years. That's a long time to have at least one #1 hit in there. It's interesting, when she first started out her career as a teenager and she was in school productions and things like that, she was able to lower her voice to such a range that she was actually able to sing and play the roles of males, because there was a shortage of males in the schooling that she was in to play these parts, and she had that amazing range in her voice to be able to do that. And isn't that amazing to think that a woman that has such a range in her vocal range could have achieved so much? I really believe that, you know, Cher has got a very mixed race background, and part of that is the Native American, and gives her stunningly drop dead gorgeous looks, and her ability to be just able to tune in and sing songs that relate to people, whether you want to call them pop tunes or whether you want to call them cult tunes. One of my favourite ones was Gypsies, Tramps and Thieves, and I think I was a teenager when that song came out. But probably the more recent one that I think of a lot of is If I Could Turn Back Time. And what an apt song today. I'm sure there's a few people around the world who'd like to turn back time and turn off their Twitter accounts too, and maybe, you know, do things differently in hindsight, maybe not. But I think that song, If I Could Turn Back Time, will probably be one of the ones that people will remember Cher for. Always, when you think of Cher, you think of her, you know, in very scanty clothes with a fishnet stockings on, singing that song. And, you know, some of the movies, you know, she's been in movies, she's done it all. So we salute you this week, Cher, and continue on with your continued success as our Goddess of Pop. So we're going to take our very, very first call, and it's Nina in Rochester in New York. Are you there, Nina?
I am. How are you?
Very well, thank you, sweetie. How can I help you?
I'm not really sure. I think I'm just looking for maybe some clarity or answer on things going forward in the future with career, home, my marriage, things of that nature.
Okay, so you're really looking to sort of revamp the whole area of your life at the moment. You're questioning everything. Is that how you feel?
Yeah. Yes.
Okay. Well, there's nothing wrong with questioning things. I think that's a very healthy thing. I don't think we should all become complacent and just say, I'm very happy I've got to the top of Mount Everest and that's where I'm going to stay. First thing that they're showing me is that you are at a crossroads, that, you know, like there's a number of areas in your life that probably do need changing. Some of them might need letting go. So let's try and sort of break it down quickly. Let's go into the job situation. I don't know that the job that you're in is what I'd call something that's going to make you happy for the next 2 or 3 years. I think you do need to sort of question whether or not it is time to sort of maybe look at what your skill set is. Can I get into something else that's going to make me feel happier in myself? Yes, money's always important, but I think at the moment it's more about job satisfaction and, you know, enough money coming in to cover what you need and, you know, to be paid for what you're doing. But I think it's more about you've got to have some excitement to get out of bed and go to work of a morning, and that's not there with the current job. So they're showing me around August or September. Yeah, they're showing me around August or September this year is when you're really going to make that final decision. Now, whether that means that you actually land another job then, or whether you just get that great epiphany moment of, yes, this is now I know what I want to do. You know what I mean? I need to go and get some extra training, or I need some extra study, or I need whatever, and then I'm on the path with that. So I feel for the moment, let's just let that sit to one side. Like you haven't had any great inspiration at where you want to go next with that. So let's just leave that to one side. It will come. As far as the marriage is concerned, look, I don't think the marriage is heading for divorce or anything like that. I think it's just got a little bit stale. I think you've been so absorbed in what you're doing, he's so absorbed in what he's doing, and we've forgot to be a couple. And I think that's where we need to sort of work on that. You know, marriage is a tricky thing because they're not always beds of roses. You know, there's ups and downs and everything else in between, and there's all different stages that come into a marriage. And I think the tricky part is we have to keep evolving and grow with it. And I think you've evolved and grown, but I'm going to say I think your husband's only done that in bits and pieces. I don't think he's kept up with you, and that's been part of the problem. It doesn't mean that you necessarily, you know, have grown apart as such. It just means we've got to find other ways of bringing the two of you back together as a couple, that we still enjoy each other, but we can still be autonomous and have our own lives as well. So I do feel that, you know, things will start to improve as far as the marriage is concerned, and that's good. But I also sort of felt that there'd been a change in a number of friendships this year too, Nina. Has there been people that have been in a long part of your life have sort of disappeared or gone on to other things, or you're no longer interested in? Has that been happening as well?
Yeah.
And that's just all part of the changes that are happening in you. So don't look at that in a negative. People come into our lives for a certain period of time, sometimes for a lifetime and sometimes only for a short time. So it's time to sort of just let those things naturally die off, or, you know, peter out as they need to be, because this is part of where you're going forward. So my suggestion would be the next 6 or 8 weeks, spoil yourself, sit on the couch, have a glass of wine, watch some movies, do literally nothing in your spare time, and just let the ideas come and go out of your mind, and you will start to get some clarity at what the next steps are that you need to take. It's not an urgent feeling yet. It's just slowly simmering underneath the surface. But I know that by the end of this year, you'll look back and say, yes, I've made some great progress and I'm really happy in the direction that I'm going. So I hope that's helped you tonight, Nina.
Yes, absolutely.
Wonderful. Lovely to talk to you. We're going to go to Kim in Calgary in Alberta in Canada. Are you there, Kim?
Hi, how are you?
Very well, thank you, Kim. How can I help you, sweetie?
I'm just calling about my previous relationship, and he just started to reappear into my life, and I just want to know, like, what's going to happen between us.
Okay. It's always interesting when someone makes a comeback into your life after they've been considered the ex, you know, that we've parted company. You know, there's usually reasons with an S why the relationship didn't work and we parted company and we've gone our own separate ways. And sometimes then I think people realise then that what they had was better than what they've got in their new, you know, found freedom and their new life. I just sort of feel with your ex, I'm getting too many question marks. And when I start seeing a series of question marks, I start to question his reasons for wanting to come back. To me, I don't think he's been clear with you yet at the reasons why he's trying to reconnect. What is it that he's hoping for? What is it he's trying to achieve? You know, he's sort of come back and sort of tipped your life upside down again, and you're starting to question well, what's my role in this? Do I want it? Do I not want it? Where's it going to lead? What's it all about? I think the only suggested course of action would be take it very slowly, ask a lot of questions, and if you don't get answers that fit comfortably with you, then make a note of that, because then that's sort of like your little warnings to say, hey, hang on a minute, let's probe a bit deeper here. Let's ask a few more questions. You know, look, I don't feel that there's anything nasty there, and I do feel that there's still a connection between the two of you. And I'd go so far to say as I don't even know that that connection is completely finished, and this is why he's sort of come back and making, you know, sort of overtures to sort of, you know, how are you, what have you been doing, all these sort of things. It's sort of like, well, be a bit more open with me than that. You know, if he's made connection again with you and said, hi, how are you, what have you been doing the last 2 years? Well, that'd get my back up a bit to think, well, how dare you ask me that? Do you know what I mean? Like, you haven't been part of my life. You've got no reason to know what's been going on. But if he came back and said, hi, look, you've been on my mind a bit lately, just thought I'd reach out and see how you are, what are you up to? That's a more subtle sort of approach. It's sort of, I feel that in the time that the two of you have been apart, I feel he was in another relationship. I feel that's since finished. And I feel that he's at a bit of a loose end, Kim. And I think he's sort of reaching out to you because he never stopped thinking about you. And that's fair enough. But I think he needs to be open and honest about this. Do you have strong feelings for him still?
Yes, I do. And he's just been, because I would stop talking to him and then he would contact me asking me why I stopped talking to him. And it just goes back to square one where he says, I miss you, but I just don't want to be in a relationship. So he's just giving me hot and cold answers, and I just, that's not going to go anywhere in the future.
No, well, if he sort of said to you that he wants to keep communicating with you, but he's not ready for a relationship, you've got to chop it. Because what he's got is he's got his cake and he's eating it too. He can't have it both ways. You're fulfilling his emotional needs, but he's not prepared to give you a commitment. No, that's no good. You don't need that. All you're going to do is be in the same situation, going around the same circle in 12 months' time, 2 years' time, and 4 years' time. You deserve better than that. I'd lay it on the line with him. I'd say, look, you know, this is what I need. If you can't step up to the plate, well, then that's it. No more contact. Finished.
Okay.
Because otherwise,
so you don't see him like trying to commit with me in the future then?
I doubt it, because he's already made that statement, hasn't he? That he wants friendship, but he's not prepared for a relationship. You know, I mean, okay, you could give him the leeway of 3 months without telling him that and suggest that to him. You know, like sort of in your own mind, put a mark on the calendar and say, if I haven't got anything further by, you know, say the 1st of October, well, then I'm going to have to review the situation and see what happens in that time. That would be a way of doing it without him knowing that he's got to make a commitment or, you know, have shown some sort of major steps forward towards that. If he hasn't by then I think you've got your answer, haven't you? You've slowly progressed with this. You've given him time to sort of show you what his true intentions are, and then you make decisions.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you so much.
My pleasure, Kim. So on next week's show, we'll have our Simply Tarot card of the week. We'll also have our candle of the week. We'll also look at our famous person. We'll be going to the males next time in Gemini, so that'll be rather interesting, who I'm going to pick next week. And we'll, of course, we'll have our little trip around the universe and see what's happening astrologically. But for those of you, I'd like to sort of say thank you for your patience with us running behind time tonight with techo issues. We'll always try and endeavour to bring the show to you no matter what. Rain, hail and shine, we'll soldier on. And until next week, be kind to each other and enjoy each other and have an absolutely awesome full moon in Sagittarius. It's my favourite full moon of the year. Bye for now.